I want to talk about life, how we prioritize things, how to find the bottleneck, and be happy. So we can look outward of, say, my life, which is a direction, what's the bottleneck and what can be done. But I can also look inside of me, what's my bottleneck. And those two are to be connected because outside bottleneck can be defined, depend upon what kind of knowledge I have in myself, and that can be false. But ideally, the bottleneck of whatever the humans have need to be addressed, and that is connected to each of us to contribute. So the relationship of the outside and inward is to be found in the way the organization of human, how to function. This sounds a little too vague perhaps for some people, but let me move on to be more pragmatic. So internally, for example, I was looking at my cousin actually cut the flower and it was left out. So it was dying, but when I went there, I saw that flower was still not dead, but trying to do their best. So given the situation, biologically, we are trying to do the best given whatever the situation is, and that is connected my idea of the mini me idea, which is then connected to mini company idea. Mini me idea is like within myself. There's some structure and there may be a control center in the brain, let's call it, but it all has to be connected to all the mini me's in different area. One of them is the health. And if the health is not maintained, this whole idea of the wonderful idea that you can come up with the brain may not function well because you'll be dead. So to be wise that's the word, not to be smart in the brain. To be wise is to know what's going on overall to figure out the bottleneck. So tying to that flower example, when I see within my body construct certain area may be weak, for example, my neck, I may spend too much time on the computer reading stuff, or I may have my backache because I go kayaking and diving with a big weight. So I was just exercising certain part. I have a routine of exercising every day, twice, sometimes 3 times. I even posted what they are, 12 minutes, Tai Chi, yoga, and muscle exercise, all combined in 12. But that I have kept on going for years, and I monitor how often I do it and how I see the health situation at the time. Recently, because I changed my location from Japan to Hawaii now, I do more of a pickleball and the diving with a heavy weight on the back and do the spearfishing. Given the situation, I have the bicycle and no car, and I optimize the best of this situation by doing the pickleball as one exercise, maybe walk around hiking, and then go out kayaking and then diving from the kayak. Because I can then maybe catch fish and do the exercise, have fun, and all of that combined in one. But because of the pain in the back, I thought maybe related to diving and heavy weight, I start to look into the 12 minutes exercise to modify it so that I don't just do that 12 on certain sequence, but adjusting to the current need of where I am. So finding the bottleneck is very important. And looking at the bottleneck from different perspective, Charlie Munger talked about the idea of the inversion, which I shared in the video, as usual. Whatever I find it interesting, I post it. But the idea of inversion is related to what I see as a bottleneck. His view is that, how can I explain it? One specific phrase that I like is that if you know where you die, don't go there. It's so simple, common sense, but do we practice it? Inversion idea is think about all the possible dangers you got and don't go there. Then what you find is what you should do. As a matter of fact, I wrote and published the book New Manufacturing Challenge, which sold hundreds of thousands of language copies and 15 or more translated, and the idea of elimination of the waste. But I also said the worst waste is not utilizing our talent. So if we see the bottleneck as something that you can deal with, you should address that one. But one pragmatic way to deal with the bottleneck is the idea of the inversion or elimination of waste so that you don't do things. So if you use the health as an example, and also my exercise routine I mentioned, I've been doing well, but there's the exposure of the problem, because if you expose the problem, it's much better than not knowing. For that, I have a standardized way of exercising, and then I found, because of the change of location and behavior, the pain in the back, the neck, computer, and exercise point that I should do something about it. If you are randomly doing your daily routine, you cannot find it easily. So standardizing, more consistent approach, doing things right, is critical. And that's what I mentioned about like a plan, do, check, act. Also the Sila, samadhi, panna, problem solving. Life is the process of problem solving. And the best way, or the better way, is to eliminate the waste and find the bottleneck and focus on that one. So going back to that flower example, the flower is dying, but they are utilizing the best of that mini-me idea, because the flower part is still there, so they can have chance of developing a fruit or the seed out of it, because that's the mission. The mission for the plant is to make the most, to hopefully propagate, move on to the next generation and evolve as much as we doing the same. So if you cannot address things, eliminate what you can do, cut it out, delusion, and focus on whatever you can, and even the plant is doing. So it corresponds to the mini-me idea, not just the human, to figure out what's the best situation by having a different department within myself, but not to push too much in one area, but figure out the holistic view, the total view of what the waste is and how to eliminate. But in the book I mentioned, again, elimination of waste, if you do more, then you can enhance the people to do their best. So it's empowerment, and that lead to self-managing themselves, a mini company. So the plant of the mini-me flower is the same example, that if the organization is not doing well, you have to focus on certain area and work on that. So the idea of the new manufacturing challenge, waste elimination, is for the organization, but the same principle will be applied for each individual to see how you are managing your life. It's self-management. And not just you, but me to be doing the job. As much as the flower's case, certain area is declining because of the age or not doing the right exercise, having a pain. So we have to be responsive to address the needs at any moment, because we are the living being, and if we lose the living, all the missions and wonderful things that you want to do cannot be executed and accomplished. So being wise is not just locally focused on certain area, but rather to look at the whole picture. So let me stop on this one. because I just said a very important situation of not focusing on one, but looking all the system and figure out where the bottlenecks are and address it. At the same time, we want to address the localized issue. But here's the case that I was listening to one of the video. Larry Summers was talking something, and Eric Schmidt from the previous Google guy was talking, communicating, and used the word polymath. And I wasn't so familiar. I could guess what it was, but I checked, and this is the definition. A polymath is someone who has extensive knowledge in many different subjects and can draw on that knowledge to solve problems. The word comes from the Greek word polymath, which means well learned. And if you know my other videos, I use the word like triangulate. I used awakening. I used the synchronization. I used the word synchronize or go beyond the boundary. You know, like a brain and heart, not just occupied in brain, but linked to the heart. So the issue of holistic, total understanding of the whole system would help us to identify area instead of getting caught up in the small part of it, so that the different subjects need to be well internalized and draw from that knowledge to solve problem. So here's another, if I can find it, another word that I found in the internet, which is the specialization is for insects. There was someone who said that. I'm laughing. The point of that sentence, the humans should not specialize like insect, incapable of doing anything outside of their specialty. That's no good, because you get stuck. And my word that I used recently was linear logic. If you do A and B, you get C. And if your life is just do A, B, and C, instead of looking at X, Y, Z, and alpha, beta, and so forth, you just do one single trick. And other word that you use is silo, the syndrome of silo. I've seen it, and I dealt with it. I wrote books about it, and one of the book, New Shop Floor Management, was addressed the barrier of not top management, detached from the shop floor but connected, but also horizontally, each silo should be connected because of the customer-supplier relationship. And I extended the notion, not just within the organization, with the idea of the mini company and glass wall management, but also within myself. And I practice it. And my practice of Zen, spirituality, is about going beyond the specialization, like the case of the brain and heart. If you're just occupied in the brain, maybe you're smart, maybe you're not wise, because you're smart, but your body may be declining. That's why I was talking about this exercise on my neck and back, whatever is needed. So to be wise requires us to be open-minded and to know where the bottleneck is. And if you fail addressing it, you may lose your life, or you may be like an insect. And you've seen those people in the organization. Specialization is necessary to live. And unless you're specialized, you cannot prove. But the generalization is very important. And my view of the shop floor management and people involvement is the same as me involved in all of my whole existence, mini me's. And that's why I also said that AI is to do the same. If you have a problem, look for all the possible answers, not just focus on one area, but looking at the whole huge database without the boundary and find a way to synthesize. So that's AI. And I've said that AI's approach is to come up with the idea, but the same idea of coming up with the idea can be applied in our awakening, spiritual awakening. And for that to happen, there are those barriers. Ego is one of the problems, and using the brain but not listen to the heart is another problem. So maybe I spent 15 minutes by now, too confusing, but I'm throwing a rock into the pond, so to speak. The pond is me and you, that we have certain view, but we need some level of stimulation. Is this the right way? And I'm saying that samadhi, the principle I talked over and over and over and over, is to have a calm and quiet mind so that you don't get attached to something. And that's what Larry Summers was talking with Eric Schmidt, with this idea of polymath. And that's the idea of exposing the problem, have a balanced view to find the way to live our life. Perhaps that's good enough. There are a bunch of words like polymath, synchronization, awakening, idea generation, brain and heart, bottleneck, waste elimination, and utilizing the best of our talent. I've been talking about this. Use the brain, listen to your heart, and live with a mission. The mission should be right. The way to use the brain should be right. Connecting to the heart should be right. It's an interesting process to live life. It's complex, but we want to be wise. Otherwise, you are simpleton, like an insect. Not to blame on someone, because everybody is the result of the habitual development we have had. And certain habits will hamper us from looking at the bigger picture. And the world is changing so rapidly, and AI can help. You can have a distance from AI as a tool, or some may use it the wrong way, but you need to be wise to see, not be a simpleton like insect doing certain things. Time is limited, information is so big, how to find is left for each of us. Nobody can guide you. Possibly AI can help doing it, but there's no guarantee at the moment. So my view here is to point out some of those, what I see as important, not urgent. Urgent things, A, B, C, you do this, you do this, you do this, and you spend so much time. Have samadhi in the morning, before go to bed, during the lunchtime or in between, so that you have a basis that you can see through within your construct, within your knowledge base. But try to access those to come up with idea, wisdom, to help live our life better for each of us, and for organization and for humanity, we are to do that. And that's the process I see that we are to do, and we are to do. Thank you.